All right, strap in, everybody. We're going deep into Sunny Jetsun's 35 Cosmic Harmonic PDF. It's, well, intense.
Oh yeah, this is something else. It's like a manifesto from another dimension.
A manifesto. That's a good way to put it. Like, he's laying out his worldview, but it's filtered through this lens of surrealism and poetry and
And some pretty out there accusations.
exactly. He's not pulling any punches when it comes to, like, Big Pharma, the World Economic Forum. Even Bill Gates gets dragged. Yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely doesn't hold back.
So for this deep dive, we're going to try to unpack some of these denser ideas, like what is surrealism journalism anyway?
Right. That's one of his key concepts. He talks about using the internet, this flood of information we're all drowning in, to basically dissect and challenge the mainstream narrative.
Yes, so he's not just ranting. There's a method to the madness.
Yeah, there's definitely a thought process there. He's saying, don't just accept what you're being told. Look deeper, find the connections, question everything. That sounds pretty intense. Does he give any examples of like how to actually do this surrealism journalism?
Well, he weaves together these really disparate things. Like he'll take a current event, a news story or something, and then suddenly he's talking about ancient history or poetry or philosophy.
So it's like a collage.
Yeah.
A mashup of ideas.
Exactly. And he's trying to show how these seemingly unrelated things are actually connected. Like there's this section where he talks about China's use of QR codes for social control, and then he jumps to like the transhumanist agenda and how technology is being used to manipulate people on a global scale.
Okay, yeah, that's starting to sound a little conspiracy theory-ish.
It can get pretty out there for sure, but it's also fascinating how he connects the dots, how he sees these patterns that most people miss.
So he's basically saying, wake up, sheeple. The world is not what you think it is.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of that. He wants to shake people out of their complacency, make them question the systems of power that control their lives.
And he's not afraid to name names. Like, he goes after the World Economic Forum pretty hard, calls them a bunch of elitists who are pulling the strings behind the scenes.
It's a pretty common critique these days, the idea that these unelected bodies have too much influence over global policy.
Right, and Jetsun's tapping into that anxiety. He's saying, look, these guys are running the show, and they're not accountable to anyone.
And he connects it back to this idea of control, how technology and globalization are being used to create a world that benefits a select few at the expense of everyone else.
So it's not just about, like, shadowy elites. It's about the systems they're creating, the way they're using technology to shape society.
Exactly. And he sees this happening on multiple levels, from the way we consume information, to the way we interact with each other, to the way we understand our own bodies and minds.
Okay, so we've got Big Pharma, shadowy elites, dystopian technology, and it's a lot to unpack. But what about the spiritual side of things? I mean, he's not just a ranting conspiracy theorist, right?
Right. No, not at all. He's deeply spiritual in his own way. He talks a lot about the feminine divine, this idea that feminine energy and wisdom have been suppressed in our modern world.
So he's not just a tech-phobic, anti-establishment curmudgeon. There's more to it than that.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of beauty and poetry in his work. He's searching for a way to transcend the darkness he sees all around him, to connect with something deeper, something more meaningful.
It's like he's saying, yes, the world is messed up, but there's still hope. There's still beauty. We just have to find it.
Exactly. And he sees women as key to that process. He believes they hold a kind of wisdom and spiritual power that's essential for creating a more balanced and harmonious world.
Okay, that's interesting. So we've got this blend of social critique, conspiracy theories, spiritual seeking, and a deep respect for women. How does all that fit together?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think to understand Jetsun, you have to see him as a product of his time.
Okay, so what's his background? Where's he coming from?
Well, he came of age during the counterculture movement of the 60s and 70s, a time of intense social upheaval and distrust of authority. He's carrying that spirit of rebellion, that questioning of the status quo into his writing today.
So he's like a modern-day hippie with a laptop and a serious case of paranoia.
Haha. Yeah, something like that. But there's also a deep intelligence there, a genuine desire to make the world a better place. He's not just ranting for the sake of ranting. He's trying to wake people up to what he sees as the real threats to our freedom and our humanity.
So he's like this bridge between the old school counterculture and the modern digital world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. He's taking those 60s ideals of questioning authority and challenging the system and applying them to the 21st century.
And he's doing it in this really unique way, this blend of poetry and social commentary and almost like a stream of consciousness rant.
Yeah, his writing can be pretty disorienting at times. Like you're being swept along by this torrent of ideas and images.
Right. And just when you think you're starting to get a handle on it, he throws in something completely unexpected, like a love poem to Mother Earth or a diatribe against GMOs.
And yet somehow it all hangs together. There's this underlying coherence, this thread that runs through it all.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the negative stuff, the critiques and the warnings and the conspiracy theories. But what about the positive side? What does he offer in terms of solutions or a vision for a better future?
Well, he talks a lot about the importance of connecting with nature, of tapping into that primal energy that flows through all living things. He sees that as a way to ground ourselves, to find balance in a world that's increasingly artificial and disconnected.
And he keeps coming back to this idea of the feminine divine, this reverence for women and the qualities he associates with femininity.
Right. He sees feminine energy as essential for healing the world, for bringing balance and compassion and intuition back into the equation.
So it's not just about like gender equality on a political level. It's about something deeper, something more spiritual.
Exactly. It's talking about a shift in consciousness, a reevaluation of our values, a move away from the hypermasculine, dominance-driven worldview that he sees as at the root of so many of our problems.
Okay, that's fascinating. So he's got these really big, sweeping ideas about society and technology and spirituality. But does he ever get down to brass tacks? Like, does he offer any practical advice for how to actually live in this crazy world he's describing?
Well, he talks a lot about the importance of critical thinking, of questioning everything, of not just accepting the mainstream narrative at face value.
Okay, so it's about like taking responsibility for your own understanding of the world, not just letting yourself be spoon-fed information.
Right. He wants people to be active participants in the creation of their own reality, to be aware of the forces that are shaping their thoughts and beliefs, and to make conscious choices about how they engage with the world.
That sounds like a tall order. Like, how do you even begin to do that when you're bombarded with information from all sides, from the news to social media to just like everyday conversations?
He doesn't offer any easy answers, that's for sure, but he does suggest that connecting with nature, with our own intuition, and with that subconscious life stream he talks about, can help us to cut through the noise and find our own truth.
So it's about like quieting the mind, tuning out the external distractions, and really listening to that inner voice.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And also being willing to question everything, to challenge our own assumptions, to be open to new perspectives.
So it's not just about like rejecting everything the mainstream media tells you. It's about being discerning, being critical, thinking for yourself.
Exactly. It's about developing that inner compass, that sense of what rings true for you, and then having the courage to follow it, even if it leads you off the beaten path.
That's really powerful stuff. So it sounds like Jetsun's message is ultimately one of empowerment, of taking back control of your own mind and your own life.
I think that's a fair assessment. He's saying, yes, the world is a mess, but you don't have to be a victim of it. You have the power to choose your own reality, to create your own meaning, to find your own path.
That's a really inspiring message, actually, even if it's coming from this kind of eccentric, maybe even a little bit crazy character.
Yeah, well, I think you need a little bit of craziness to see the world differently, to challenge the status quo, to imagine a better future.
Okay, so we've talked about Jetsun's philosophy, his worldview, his call to action. But what about his poetry? I mean, he's primarily a poet, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think his poetry is really where his unique voice shines through. It's like a window into his soul, into the way she sees the world.
So what's his poetry like? What are some of the themes he explores?
Well, he writes a lot about nature, about the beauty and the power of the natural world. He also writes a lot about love, about the longing for connection, about the search for meaning.
And he often uses this very surreal, almost psychedelic imagery.
Yes, absolutely. His language is very evocative, very sensual. It's like he's trying to paint a picture with words, but it's a picture that's constantly shifting and changing, morphing into something new.
So it's not like traditional poetry with rhyme schemes and meter and all that.
Yeah.
It's something more free-flowing, more experimental.
Exactly. He's breaking the rules, pushing the boundaries of language, trying to create something that's truly unique and original.
Okay, I'm really intrigued now. Can you give us an example of one of his poems? Like something that really captures his style and his message?
Sure. There's one called Under House Arrest, A Prisoner in My Own Room, that I think is particularly powerful. It speaks to this feeling of being trapped, of being controlled, of being silenced.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that title alone is pretty intense. Okay, so what's the poem about? What's he saying?
Well, he starts by describing this feeling of isolation, of being cut off from the world, of being surrounded by these invisible bars.
Like he's a prisoner in his own home. That's a pretty heavy metaphor.
Yeah, and he connects it to this idea of being controlled by forces beyond our control, by the powers that be, by the systems that govern our lives.
So it's not just about like physical confinement, it's about mental and emotional confinement as well.
Right. He's talking about being trapped in a certain way of thinking, a certain way of seeing the world. And he's railing against that. He's fighting for his freedom, for his right to think for himself.
And he does it in this really raw, visceral way. Like his words are like punches. They hit you right in the gut.
Yeah, there's no holding back. He's not afraid to be angry, to be confrontational, to shake people up.
And yet there's also this underlying beauty to it, this sense of hope, this belief that something better is possible.
Right. He's not just complaining, he's offering an alternative. He's pointing towards a different way of being, a different way of relating to the world.
And he's doing it through this incredibly powerful and evocative language, this blend of poetry and social commentary and almost like a spiritual manifesto.
Exactly. He's creating something new, something that defies categorization, something that challenges us to think differently, to feel differently, to be differently.
So we've covered a lot of ground with Sunny Jetsun, from his surrealism journalism to his fiery critiques of, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to ruffle some feathers. But amidst all that, there's this real sense of hope, this belief in the power of human connection and the beauty of the natural world.
Right, like even though he's pointing out all these problems, he's not just like wallowing in despair. He's offering a path forward, a way to create a better world.
Exactly. He's saying, look, things are messed up, but we're not powerless. We can change things. We can create a world that's more just, more equitable, more in tune with nature and with our own humanity.
And he sees women as playing a key role in that process. Like he really emphasizes the importance of feminine energy and wisdom.
Yeah, he keeps coming back to that idea of the feminine divine, this source of power and creativity that's been suppressed for too long.
It's like he's saying we need to rebalance the scales, to bring the feminine back into the equation if we want to create a world that's truly harmonious and sustainable.
And he connects that to his spiritual beliefs, to his understanding of energy and consciousness and the interconnectedness of all things.
Right, like it's not just about gender equality on a political level. It's about something much deeper, something more fundamental to the way we understand ourselves and our place in the world.
Exactly. He's calling for a shift in consciousness, a reevaluation of our values, a move away from this hyper-masculine, dominance-driven worldview that he sees as at the root of so many of our problems.
So it's a pretty radical message, actually.
Yeah.
Like he's not just tinkering around the edges. He's talking about a complete transformation of society and of ourselves.
Yeah, he's definitely a big picture thinker. He's not afraid to challenge the fundamental assumptions that underpin our culture.
And he's doing it in this really unique and compelling way, this blend of poetry and philosophy and social commentary and almost like a prophetic rant.
It's a voice that you don't hear very often, and whether you agree with everything he says or not, you can't deny that he makes you think, he makes you question, he makes you, look at the world in a different way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Sunny Jetsun's world, what's the one big takeaway for our listeners? Like what's the question that his work leaves us grappling with?
I think the big question is, how do we become more conscious creators of our own reality? Like, how do we take responsibility for the world we're creating, both individually and collectively?
Right, because he's really emphasizing that we're not just like passive victims of circumstance.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose, to act, to make a difference.
Exactly. He's calling us to step into our power, to embrace our creativity, to connect with our intuition, and to use all of that to create a world that's more aligned with our highest values and aspirations.
And he's reminding us that it's not going to be easy. Like, there are powerful forces out there that are trying to control us, to keep us asleep, to keep us from realizing our full potential.
But he's also saying that we're not alone. Like, there's a growing movement of people who are waking up, who are questioning the status quo, who are looking for a better way.
And he's inviting us to join that movement, to be part of the solution, to help create that better world that we all know is possible.
It's a powerful message, and I think it's one that resonates deeply with a lot of people right now. Like, there's so much uncertainty and anxiety in the world, and people are hungry for something to believe in, something to hope for, something to fight for.
And Sunny Jetsun, in his own, unique and often outrageous way, is offering that. He's giving us a vision, a path forward, a reason to get out of bed in the morning and try to make a difference.
So whether you're a seasoned conspiracy theorist or you're just starting to question the way things are, I think there's something in Jetsun's work that can speak to you, that can challenge you, that can inspire you.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, keep connecting, and never stop believing in the power of human potential to create a better world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Sunny Jetsun. It's been a wild ride.